Okay, so today I'll be reciting the end of Surah Al-Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. تبارك الذي جعل في السماء بروجا وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا وهو الذي جعل الليل والنهار خلفة لمن أراد أن يذكر أو أراد شكورا وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما والذين يبيتون لربهم سجدا وقياما والذين يقولون ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما والذين إذا أنفقوا لم يسرفوا ولم يقتروا وكان بين ذلك قواما والذين لا يدعون مع الله إلها آخر ولا يقتلون النفس التي حرم الله إلا بالحق ولا يزنون فمن يفعل ذلك يلقى أثاما يضاعف له العذاب يوم القيامة ويخلد فيه مهانا إلا من تاب وآمن وعمل عملا صالحا فأولئك يبدل الله سيئاتهم حسنات وكان الله غفورا رحيما ومن تاب وآمن وعمل صالحا فإنه يتوب إلى الله متابا والذين لا يشهدون الزور وإذا مروا باللغو مروا كراما والذين إذا ذكروا بآيات ربهم لم يخروا عليها صما وعميانا والذين يقولون ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما أولئك يجزون الغرفة بما صبروا ويلقون فيها تحية وسلاما خالدين فيها حسنت مستقرا ومقاما قل ما يعبأ بكم ربي لولا دعاؤكم لقد كذبتم فسوف يكون لزاما. جزاك الله خيرا.
Jazakallah khair for the beautiful recitation for the Imam. So we begin again, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And the One Bermuda Ummah would like to welcome you this evening to hear a lecture by visiting Imam Shadeed Muhammad. And it is entitled, Righting the Wrongs and Gang Culture. So we'd like to extend a special welcome to Imam Shadeed and his family for being here with us. We'd like to extend a special welcome to Imam Basim, our Imam here in Bermuda, and also Imam Salim. And we would also like to welcome the union leader and thank the union leader, Chris Fervin, and the ombudsman of the BIU, Victoria Pierman. So I'm going to read a brief bio of Imam Shadeed Muhammad. And I was told that this bio was read somewhere else. It's quite extensive, actually, so I was told to just skim through it, so as not to have us waiting too long. Shadeed Muhammad is originally from Montclair, New Jersey. He's a revert to Islam from Christianity in 1997. Shortly after his conversion, he was accepted into the Islamic University of Medina in Saudi Arabia in 2001, where he studied Arabic intensively for 2 years, and then moved on to the College of Hadith and Hadith Sciences, where he studied fiqh, usul al-fiqh, the principles in jurisprudence, tafsir, seerah, and Quran, among other sciences, while concentrating specifically on the sciences of hadith. He graduated from the Islamic University of Medina in 2007 with a degree in classical Arabic and a bachelor's degree in Islamic studies with a concentration in hadith sciences and the prophetic traditions. He has extensive experience in the field of da'wah, Islamic outreach, Arabic translation, and public lecturing, dating back to 2003. He has lectured at many masajid, many mosques, colleges, universities throughout North America, including Canada and the United Kingdom. Imam Shadeed has also translated many contemporary Arabic works into the English language, and he has authored some of his own books through his own publishing company, Rawda Publications.
That's good enough.
Is that enough?
That's good.
He wants me to stop. So I just say, Shadeed Muhammad was previously the Imam of United Muslim Masjid from 2010 to 2014, and he currently resides in Newark. It says Newark, DE. Is that Delaware? In Newark, Delaware. I didn't know there was a Newark, Delaware. And he's the head of the Islamic Studies Department at the Islamic Academy of Delaware. So we'd like to welcome Imam Shadeed Muhammad.
I cringe with every word that he uttered. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And good evening to all of our guests that are here that are not Muslim. I would like to say to Bermuda, you have a beautiful country here. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to bless you guys. The Muslim community continue to help you guys grow in your community. I would like to thank One Ummah, Bermuda community, One Ummah, for Sister Amina and the rest of the crew who were responsible for bringing me here. I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have the opportunity to address you guys this evening. And hopefully by the end of this discussion, we'll have a different perspective on what we see happening with many of our youth. All right, my job here tonight is not to come here from America and tell you what you're doing wrong, but you need to be doing better. My job here tonight is to just help you open your eyes to something that maybe you weren't thinking about. And not just as I'm streaming this live, not just for your community, because there are many Muslim communities around the world that are suffering from the same issues, that are dealing with the same problems. So I'm not just speaking directly to one community, but to us as an ummah, us as a community, as a whole, as a nation. So I'll begin with praising Allah, praising God. I'm going to use Allah because I'm Muslim. But for those of you who are not Muslim, when I say Allah, I'm not referring to some God that only Muslims believe in. I'm referring to God Almighty, not Jesus, but God Himself. The Almighty, the All-Powerful, the All-Knowing, the one that we all turn to, the one who even Jesus Himself turned to when He said, "Why hast thou forsaken?" Right? I'm talking about that God. Right? So I'm not referring to any God that is specific to Muslims. Right? And then I will be making some references to the Quran, which is our religious text. And if I quote it in Arabic, then I will translate it in English so you will know exactly what I'm saying. All right? I don't want anybody left out. All right, so Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. And I said all praises due to God, Lord of the worlds, and may peace and blessings be upon His final prophet and messenger Muhammad, and upon his family and companions. So I'll start my talk with a quote by Frederick Douglass. I think it's very important to begin with that. He said, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." I want you to just kind of ponder on that for a second, because he's alluding to something that we kind of overlook. And he's alluding to dealing with the root causes, not the symptoms. The symptom would be trying to repair a broken man. The root causes is building strong children. So starting from the beginning, all right? These words are just as relevant today as they were the day that he uttered them. The Quran teaches us that societal dysfunction with all that it entails, it is the product of human engineering. Not God's problem. God didn't do this. Whatever dysfunction we are experiencing as a nation, as a people, in society, it's not God's problem. Someone may turn to God and say, well, what did we do to deserve this? Why me? Why us? Right? Your child gets robbed, or your child gets murdered, or a family member, some bodily harm is done, and it will turn to God and say, why me? What did I do? Rather than looking at the society. So the Quran teaches us that societal dysfunction is a product of human engineering. Why? So that as human beings, we see ourselves collectively as part of the problem and therefore consequently a part of the solution. Because if you see yourself as part of the problem, then you will work more diligently to create a solution, right or wrong. But if you say, that's not my problem, then you can care less about the solution. What you're going to do is try to avoid the problem so it doesn't affect you and yours, but you can care less about who else it affects because it's not your problem. Am I making any sense? And we do it as a society, as a nation, and even as Muslims, we do it in the Muslim community as well. That's their problem. In America, right, you have this divide in the Muslim community where it's like, okay, where there's crime and drug use and abuse, it's like, that's their problem. We don't have that problem here in our community, right? But we're all one ummah though, right? So how do we make, you guys follow me? Yes. It's hypocritical, honestly. So when the Quran attaches the human being to the problem, also attaches you to the solution. Also makes you responsible for finding a solution. There's a verse in the Quran, Surah number 41, ayat 42. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. That ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ, fasad in the Arabic language means corruption in all of its different manifestations. Corruption, crime, anything that can fit in that category. Corruption has appeared on land and on sea. And it's no coincidence that you guys are surrounded by water, right? ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. That corruption, crime has appeared on land and on sea. بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ. Because what human beings have done. See the connection? Putting the onus on the human being. It's not God's fault. Because of what human beings have done. Then Allah says, لِيُذِيقَهُمْ بَعْضَ الَّذِي عَمِلُوا. So that He may allow you to taste the consequences of your own actions. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. So that perhaps they may turn back from the behavior. Create a solution to the problem. So as a society, unfortunately, our greatest tragedy is disassociation. As a society, our greatest tragedy is disassociation. Because it provides us with a pedestal of privilege and the luxury to judge without consideration. Here again, when you disassociate yourself from the problem, you can sit back and you can point the finger, you can judge, you sit from a place of privilege, right? This pedestal of privilege, because it's not your problem. It's somebody else's problem. So then you can judge and you can say, oh, you guys need to fix your households. Oh, you guys need to fix your family structure. Oh, you guys need to do this and do that. You can judge. You can broad brush an entire race of people, an entire nation of people with one brush, one stroke. This is your problem. And the only reason that you have been afforded that luxury is because you have disassociated yourself from the problem. And in the Muslim community, here again, we are good for doing that. In psychology, from a more clinical usage of the term disassociation, and I think that it's applicable here too, disassociation is an adaptive defense in a response, as a response to a high stress or traumatized circumstance. It is characterized by a loss of memory. When a person has been in a real traumatic situation, one of the things that they will do to help them cope with the trauma that they experience is disassociate. And that can be characterized by a loss of memory and a sense of disconnection from yourself, meaning a numbness. You numb yourself to it so you don't think about it too much, or disassociation from the environment wherein the trauma was created. So it's almost as if society is somehow the victims of a dilemma that they helped create. So we get back in, we get to say, I'm the victim here. Let's bring in, gang, people to come in and deal with gangs and talk about gangs. And while we put so much of our resources, so much of our, energy into combating gang violence, we never put any of those resources or energy into the root causes of the existence of gang violence. You guys follow me? So we'll pay this person thousands and thousands of dollars to come in and address the gangs and address the behavior, but never getting to the root cause for why the behavior exists in the first place. Always missing the point. So the family unit, let me just say this, the family unit is one of the most important influences in the life of a child. It is the necessity, the basic necessity that even animals share. There's a verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا مِن دَابَّةٍ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا طَائِرٌ يَطِيرُ بِجَنَاحَيْهِ إِلَّا أُمَمٌ أَمْثَالُكُمْ. There's not a creature that walks on the earth, nor a bird in the sky that flaps its two wings, except that they are families, nations, just like you, human beings. Now this is something that even animals have. Family structure, family unit, because it's a basic necessity for our existence. The family unit provides those whom it encompasses with the validation and the substantiation that is necessary for them to become the best versions of themselves. For when we know who we are, and we know that we matter, then we can achieve great things. There was one of the companions of Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, who was previously a slave. And purchased his freedom, he was freed. And so one day Prophet Muhammad saw him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the marketplace, selling his goods in the marketplace. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, playing with him, joking with him, he walked behind him and he grabbed him from behind. And he said jokingly, "Man yashtari hadha al-abd?" Who will buy this slave? And Zahir, he turned and he said to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "La tajiduni ya Rasulullah kasidan, la yashtarini ahad." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, you will find me worthless. Nobody would purchase me. You will find me worthless." His comment about himself, that I'm worthless, is as a result of the way that society saw him. And so we adapt. If that's the way society sees me, then that's exactly how I'm going to act. And you guys living here with your youth, you need to be careful about that. Labeling them gang members, labeling them with these labels, because people now become comfortable with those labels and they begin to assimilate and they begin to demonstrate behaviors that justify or validate the titles that you gave them. Am I making sense? You call a person crazy enough, they're going to start acting crazy. You understand? I was a teenager myself. Like, yo, you crazy. All right, so I'm going to start doing crazy stuff Because I have to validate that. It's the same thing with gangster rappers who, they live in the suburbs and then they become rappers, they got tattoos, and then now they have to live up to that title that was given to them. And they're really not about that life, honestly. So be careful with labeling things and labeling children with these labels, because you are now creating, an environment where now they have to live up to that label. All right, so the point that I'm making is that when he made this comment about himself that I'm worthless, nobody would buy me, nobody would purchase me, I'm worth nothing. This was as a result of the way society saw him. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said to him, breathing life right back into him, which is what we should be doing. He said, no, bel anta indallahi ghalib. He said, no, to God you are priceless. He said, I'm worthless. Nobody would buy me. The Prophet ﷺ said, no, to Allah, you're priceless. Meaning just because someone else doesn't see your worth doesn't mean that you're worthless. Just because others don't see how valuable you are doesn't mean that you are without value. Am I making sense here? So the family unit provides, this validation, this substantiation that children need to become the best version of themselves. In 1943, a man by the name of Abraham Maslow, he wrote a paper called A Theory of Human Motivation, wherein he introduced his chart called the hierarchy of needs, which proposes the idea that the individual most basic human needs must be met first before human beings can achieve higher level needs in their lives. All right? Meaning, productive citizens of society are not just programmed, they are developed. We want productive citizens of society who come from the lower tiers of society, and you expect them to be law-abiding, productive citizens of the world. It doesn't work like that. They are not just programmed, as that's what in many instances schools, especially in America, are prepping our children to just go out into the world, follow the rules, follow the law, and become productive citizens of society. Basically sheep. Do what you're told, right? They shoot down black men in the middle of the streets in America. And then they say, well, he should have just followed the police officer's instructions. How many black men have been shot down in the streets after following the cops' instructions? So that doesn't really work. You tell him to put his hands up, you shoot him anyway. So what's your excuse then? Productive members of society are not just programmed. They are developed by investing resources, tangible and intangible. Intangible, love, compassion, a sense of worth, a sense of purpose. And tangible, money, jobs, employment, opportunities. This is the way that we create, productive members of society. But these needs that Maslow, it's a chart. You can Google it. It's a chart. It's called Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. And he starts from the bottom of the chart with the lower tier needs, and then he works his way up. 5. The first is physiological. Human beings have a basic physiological need. That's the need for air, water, food, shelter. That's a need that every human being has. If I don't have, food, shelter, water, I'm not going to be pretty receptive to what you have to say to me. Whether in school, whether in the mosque, you come to the masjid on Jumu'ah and you wonder why he's staring at the imam, but his mind is somewhere else because he's thinking about how he's going to pay his rent, which is due next week, which is due in 3 or 4 days. And you want me to come to the mosque and be attentive and be receptive to what you're saying. And what you're saying is great, but I have a need that is even greater. I don't have a roof over my head. I'm about to be evicted. There's a basic physiological need. that is in need of food, shelter, water, air. The second level, and once that is met, the second level, and that is the need of safety, personal safety for my life. If I live in an environment where I know walking out my door at any moment I could be killed, I could be shot. Just the other day, I arrived at my mother-in-law's house in Brooklyn, and I had to go to the store to get Pampers. And if you know anything about Brooklyn, it's hard to get a parking spot. So once I found one, I said, I'm gonna just walk to the store, right? And as I'm walking to the store, I'm thinking, like, what if a police officer pulls up on the side of me and says, you meet the description? It's that simple. I'm walking with my cell phone in my hand, and the cop mistakes my cell phone for a gun. And I'm just walking to the store to go get Pampers for my child. It's literally that simple. There is no safety, no security. And you expect me to be a productive member of society. It doesn't work like that. So there has to be a level of safety, personal safety, security, employment, which is another form of security. None of our jobs are secure unless you're an entrepreneur and you work for yourself. Other than that, I could say something at my job that upsets someone who has a higher status than I do, and tomorrow I'm fired. There is no safety, no security. Many children in their own homes don't have safety and security. There have been rates of molestation, rape, and the majority of molestation cases are done, the children that have been interviewed, the molestation was done by somebody that they knew. Not a stranger, an uncle, father, grandfather. There's no safety, and you want this kid to come to school and be receptive. Sit down like a nice kid, like a robot, and listen to everything you say as a teacher. Meanwhile, this child doesn't even feel safe in his own home. I read a blog of a girl who was molested by her own father. She said that she wore baggy clothes her entire teenage years, not because she enjoyed wearing baggy clothes, because she didn't trust her own damn father. She didn't want to wear anything revealing out of the fear that she might attract the attention of her own father. And you want this same child to come to school and listen, sit, be quiet, don't talk, don't get out of his seat. And it happens to boys as well. Girls are not the only victims. There has to be a level of safety. The next level of needs is love, a sense of belonging. Children need to feel like they're loved, that they belong to something, they belong to someone. I was just at Berkeley High School, and I asked, Sister Amina was there, I asked the children, how many of you, by raising your hands, your parents do not tell you on a regular basis that they love you? You would be surprised how many hands went up. Sad. Because we work all day long. That doesn't mean that we don't love our children. But we are missing the point, and that is the power of telling someone, I love you. The power that is in words. Words have power. Allah created Adam, the first man, with one word, be, and was. Allah created the heavens and the earth and everything in it. One word, be, and it was. Don't tell me words don't have power. Words are powerful. But there has to be a sense of belonging, family, friends. When children join gangs, they're looking for an extended family. They're looking for a surrogate family. They're looking for the love and the validation and the substantiation that they're not getting at home. And so while we spend thousands and thousands of dollars in bringing in people to, gang experts, your gang experts should be psychologists, clinicians, people who understand human behavior. Not ex-police officers who know how to keep people in check. That's not what we need. That's not what our children need. They need people who understand the pain and the trauma that they are going through that drives them to join gangs and engage in criminal activity. Because at the root of all of that is pain, I promise you. I promise you. The root at any kid, 18, 17, 16-year-old kid holding a gun, selling drugs, the root at the root of that behavior is pain. Guaranteed. So there's physiological needs. There's the need for safety. There's the need for love. And then there is the need for esteem, self-respect, prestige. This is what these kids join gangs. They want a reputation. They want to be respected because they don't even get respect in their own homes. Parents are dictators in the home. Do as I say, do. Don't question anything I say. The kid has no respect. The kid doesn't even have a right to ask the parent why. Because the parent believes that I'm a dictator. What I say goes. This whole authoritarian parenting, Authoritarian parenting. That is where I set rules. I don't explain to you why I set the rules. You just follow what I say. And then there's authoritative rules. I set rules. I enforce those rules with consequences, but I also take the time out to explain to you why. That makes the child feel that they have some say-so. Why do I have to come in at 11 o'clock? I'm 17 years old. Because I love you. I don't want to see anything happen to you. I don't want a phone call in the middle of the night. When you are at home, my heart is at rest. When you say that to a child, at least now, they might not agree with you, but they understand. You took the time out to explain. With love, with compassion, with them at the center of your decision. Am I making sense here? So there's a need for prestige, self-esteem, respect. And then the last, which is the highest level that a child can achieve, and that is self-actualization, where they can become the best versions of themselves, where they realize that I don't belong in anybody's box. The only limitations that I have in life are the limitations that I put on myself. Self-actualization. Children cannot reach self-actualization if they have not had the lower tier needs met. So, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the most important of these are the first three. And that is the need, physiological need for air, food, water, the need for safety, and the need for love. These are what are called deficiency needs. These are the lower tier needs, the most important. And these needs are met. The first place they're met is at home. Allah says in the Quran, وَاللَّهُ جَعَلَ لَكُم مِّن بُيُوتِكُمْ سَكَنًا. Allah has given you homes as places of rest. The word in the ayat that was used is second. Second means a place to relax. A place to relax. But second is also a derivative of the word that many of us are familiar with, which is called sakina. Sakina, which means peace, tranquility, solace. So if we had to look at that ayat using that derivative, then the home is a place of peace and tranquility, solace. The same thing Allah, the same word that Allah used when He talked about the relationship between husband and wife. Allah says in another ayah in the Quran, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. He said that from His signs is that He created for you men mates, wives. لِتَسْكُنُوا, the same word second. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, so you may find tranquility in her. You may find peace in her. The moment we step out of our homes, we can run into anything. The moment we walk into our homes, our wives turn our homes into kingdoms. Where we are the king. Where we feel, at ease. Where we feel safety, security. Our wives provide that for us. And He used the word لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا, so that you may find tranquility in them. You may find peace in them. Don't to work 40 hours a week and then come home and argue and be at war with you. I want peace. And he placed between them love and mercy and compassion, because this is what a marriage should be. It should be a place of peace and security. It should define the environment where healthy, happy children are being nurtured and produced. Thus, the family unit that is inclusive of all of these elements is likely to produce emotionally and socially healthy children who have the ability to discern between right and wrong, who have the ability to, resist peer pressure and to act upon the principles that the family has provided for that child. However, in the absence of these fundamentals, we create an environment that is unhealthy, toxic, and the children become products of that environment, products of that home, products of that family unit, and they become hazardous to themselves and hazardous to others. The Quran suggests that people are products of their environment. The Quran suggests that people are products of their environment. Just as fruits and vegetables are, whether healthy or spoiled, are the products of the soil from which they emerge. As Allah says in the Quran, وَالْبَلَدُ الطَّيِّبُ يَخْرُجُ نَبَاتُهُ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ وَالَّذِي خَبُثَ لَا يَخْرُجُ إِلَّا نَكِدًا. And al-balad al-tayyib, and the land that is good, that is healthy, that is fertile, يَخْرُجُ نَبَاتُهُ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ. It produces its fruits in multitudes by the permission of its Lord. وَالَّذِي خَبُثَ, and that which is unhealthy, that which is infertile, the soil, لَا يَخْرُجُ إِلَّا نَكِدًا. It only produces sparsely, and even what it does produce, it's not healthy. We are products of our environment. So in the Islamic tradition, one of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's companions, close companions, who was identified by Michael Hart, who wrote the 100 most influential men in the world, and there's no coincidence that he put Prophet Muhammad as his first, even though he was a Christian. He named Muhammad, and he said, I know, in his introduction, he said, I know that I'm going to catch a lot of flack from my Christian community for putting Prophet Muhammad as the first of the most 100 influential men in the world. And he goes on to explain why he put Muhammad as the first. And then Jesus second. And this companion here, Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, as number 51 on his list. Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu had a very profound statement. He said, لو كان الفقر رجلا لقتلته. He said, if poverty was a man, I would kill him. If poverty was a man, I would kill him. And the context to that statement is because poverty has the propensity to reduce human beings to their lowest animalistic state. Because their experience becomes simply about survival rather than civil coexistence. You see the difference between the two? When I have money and I can pay for things, I can pay my own way, I can live civilly and coexist with my fellow humans. But when I don't know where my next meal is going to come from, everything becomes instinctual, survival. I'm not thinking about hurting the next man, hitting the next man over the top of the head and taking his wallet. I'm thinking about how I'm going to feed myself and my family. And if I have to, unfortunately, use you, exploit you to do that, then so be it. I'm sorry, but this is bigger than you. So when he said, if poverty was a man, I would kill him, you have to understand what poverty does to people. And here in this environment, I don't have to talk about the dangers of poverty. As you can see, this society, this environment right now, being pulled from underneath those aboriginals, those who are originally from this land, as well as those who consider themselves Bermudians. And you're watching companies come from the outside and build their businesses and their corporations, and then importing employees from outside. Meanwhile, you're sitting here trying to figure out, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to take care of my family? In 10 years, what will this environment look like? And if the government here doesn't pay attention to what's happening. You're creating an environment that will eventually look exactly the way it looks in certain places in America. No different. Even Prophet Muhammad ﷺ sought refuge in Allah from poverty. The Prophet ﷺ in a dua, he said, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-kufri wal-faqr wa a'udhu bika min adhabin fil qabr. Oh Allah, oh God, I seek refuge with you from kufr, from disbelief, wal-faqr, and from poverty. وَمِنْ عَذَابٍ فِي الْقَبْرِ, and I seek refuge with you from the punishment in the grave. If you think about this dua, think about this for a moment. Notice how he connected disbelief and poverty together. What's the correlation here? What does poverty and disbelief in God have in common? What is the correlation here? If poverty will drive an individual to disbelieve in God, will make an individual sell their soul, make an individual disbelieve in God to get out of the uncomfortable situation of being poor, poverty will make a man do that. What do you think poverty will do to an individual in terms of criminal behavior? What do you think poverty will do to an individual, in terms of criminal behavior? So in the absence of fundamental human needs, people, children will not be motivated to aspire to higher levels of human functioning. And we were created as human beings to function on the highest level of our existence. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَّدْنَاهُ إِلَى أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. We have created the human being in the best of molds. We are comprised as human beings of a soul, a heart, and an intellect. All three of these, if you utilize those in the right way, you can achieve the highest level of human existence. However, in the absence of a tortured soul, in the absence of a healthy soul, a tormented soul, a soul that is in pain, a heart that can't function because it's broken, is shattered and fractured, and a mind that is preoccupied with things that only God can fix. What's the type of individual that we are creating? What type of individual has been created? This is an individual who's going to function on the lowest of frequencies of human existence. In the religion of Islam, almost done. In the religion of Islam, we have what are known as dururiyat al-khams, and the science of usul al-fiqh. Fiqh, maxims, principles. We have what are known as the 5 basic necessities that the religion of Islam, the whole entire religion of Islam, has been designed to protect and to preserve for every human being. Similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have dururiyat al-khams, and these dururiyat al-khams came way before Maslow, so you can almost see that he probably got it from Islam. These 5 basic needs, are number 1, life. Every human being has a right to live. Every human being has a right to life. Number 2, religion. Every human being has a right to connect to God. Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْإِنسَ وَالْجِنَّ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create the human being and jinn except to serve me. Our primary purpose for being here on earth is to serve God, to connect with God. Number 3 is blood. Prophet ﷺ, he said that from the perfection of being a good Muslim, or a Muslim is someone who another Muslim should never be afraid of him with respect to his blood and his honor. I should never have to fear another Muslim doing bodily harm to me, harming me, spilling my blood, or destroying my honor. I should never have to worry about that. And that is the basic. He didn't say a believer, he said a Muslim. So that is the basic behavior that I should extend to another Muslim. At very least, should never have to worry about your blood, and you should never have to worry about your honor. Number 4 is wealth. You have entitlement to your wealth. No Muslim can take the wealth of someone, whether Muslim or non-Muslim, take their wealth unjustly. And number 5 is honor, prestige. As Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Indeed, we have honored the children of Adam. And that honor remains intact. You don't have a right to infringe on that unjustly. Some scholars include in these 5, amongst these 5, lineage and nasab. And lineage helps the children to establish strong identities. When you know where you come from, when you know your heritage, you know your lineage, it helps to establish an identity, a strong identity within children. And a lot of young teens, unfortunately, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but a lot of young teenagers, both men and boys and girls, they go through a period of identity crisis around 13, 14, right? And if you notice, this is also around the time that they start to engage in criminal behavior, and if drugs or if gang affiliation is available, they might actually take a crack at it. Because they themselves are struggling in that period to find out who they are. And unfortunately, it is during that time that they become susceptible to, falling prey to, gang and gang affiliation and gang culture, which comes replete with, an identity within itself. Within the framework of gang culture, gang hierarchy, as well as there's roles and responsibilities that come along with that give them a sense of purpose. That give them a sense of purpose, which is absent in their own biological family unit. So they essentially find the validation that they're looking for in, gang culture or with their associates or affiliates. So they essentially become their surrogate family. Thus, the gang has filled in all of the necessary blanks in their lives and their narrative, giving them the validation that they desire. Of course, there are other factors, such as people join gangs or get affiliated with gangs for protection, peer pressure, idle time with no resources or activities, as well as peer acceptance, and a ton of other things. So I would be remiss if I didn't leave without offering some solutions, because I'm one of those people, I hate giving a talk and then just have people to kind of just figure it out for themselves. Your job as a speaker is not done until you have provided solutions. What's the solution? So I'm going to offer a few on my own, and then I would like to hear from you guys, because I'm sure that you know better than I do. First and foremost is that we have to improve our social institutions. Social institutions starting with home. We have to improve our homes. We have to do better. We have to do better as parents. We have to do better with our children. Making time for them, spending time with them, establishing connections with them. We have to do better. Number 2, schools. Educators, teachers, school administrators, they have to be educated on how to deal with children. I get it, a lot of educators, they graduate from these prestigious universities with all of these degrees and, early childhood education and, social studies or whatever your degree is in. That's great. But one thing that you didn't take notice of is that the children that you are there to serve come replete with a ton of challenges that are beyond academic. They're not just academic challenges. You understand? It's not just going to school, doing your job, collecting the paycheck, and your job is done. No, while you are in the classroom, you are a mother, you are a father, you are a counselor, you are everything that that child does not have. That's what you are. And if you believe that you are not, then just get out of the education business, because it's not a lot of money in it anyway, and go find something else to involve yourself in. It's just plain and simple. And we have to, especially as educators, as parents, we have to put pressure on the teachers, on the principals to make sure that you're not doing my child a disservice in this school. Because the child has some issues, we think he'll be a better fit in another school. La wallahi. I want my child here, and you are going to exercise whatever you need of your resources to assist my child. We're not going to just keep passing the buck. Schools, homes, religious institutions. I can give a whole entire lecture on that. Don't get me started on the masajid, churches, the same thing. Religious institutions, imams, preachers, teachers who own these minbars. They have to be aware. You don't have the luxury of saying, well, I don't really know what's going on out there. No, you don't have that luxury anymore. We have teenage children committing suicide at rates we have never seen in our history. And I'm not just talking about in America, in the Muslim community. How does a Muslim child who goes to a Muslim school, whose parents attend the masjid, come home from school and hang herself? How? And the Muslim Ummah is silent about it. Constantly sweeping everything under the prayer rug, hoping that nobody else sees our dirty laundry. Guess what? There's a whole line of laundry out in the back that everybody can see. We are not impervious to the problems and the challenges that affect other communities. I don't know why we believe we are. Maybe it's the self-righteousness, this, well, we need to read more Quran. We need to be more in tune with our spirituality. That doesn't solve a mental illness. Imams telling people, be patient, make more dua. These pieces of advice are complementary. Give me one situation where someone went to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with a problem, with a dilemma, and his response to them was be patient. Well, there was a marital issue. And in the issue of the woman who came and said that she had epileptic seizures, can you, make dua that Allah remove it from me? He said, I'll do you one better. You can be patient with it, and for you is paradise. No one from amongst us has that authority to say that in today's time. You understand? The Imam can't say be patient for you is Jannah, because the Prophet ﷺ received direct revelation from Allah to tell her that. So much so that Ibn Abbas, who narrated the hadith, said, can I not show you a woman from the people of paradise that are walking here on earth? You can't say that about someone unless revelation has come to the Prophet ﷺ to actually say that. This whole idea of be patient, we having a marital crisis, couple comes to the Imam's door and he listens to them talk, and out of the 45 minutes that the couple's been talking about their problems, the only retort that the Imam has is, inshallah, be patient. What type of advice is that to give somebody who's in a crisis? Be patient? That's advice? Reminds me of something Barack Obama said, saying no to everything is good for politics, but it's not leadership. Saying be patient sounds good as an imam, but it's not leadership. It's not showing that you actually have control of the situation and you know how to serve this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's servants the way they deserve to be served. And our community centers. The improvement has to include officials, administrators, teachers, community leaders, preachers becoming more aware of the human needs of these children in contrast to the systematic approach of just kind of keeping our institutions alive. We have to develop strategies, services that help strengthen families and address delinquent behaviors, which are most of the time reactionary responses to the environments in which they live. When you see delinquent behavior, I was a delinquent teenager. Going to school with a gun on me, going to school with marijuana on me. That was as a result of the foster home that I was being raised in, wherein I was being dismissed, wherein I was being overlooked, where I was being verbally abused, where I was being physically abused. My delinquent behavior was a reactionary response to the trauma that I was receiving at home. And what do? We further the trauma by, approaching with this punitive approach for every single infraction. This whole zero tolerance. We think that sounds good. Zero tolerance is the problem. There should be tolerance. Where you come up with these ideas? Zero tolerance policy. Meaning for each infraction, there's going to be a punitive response for it. What are we teaching children? Like, my wife said to me the other day, the kid does something, and the kid hit another kid, and then you pop the kid for hitting another kid. It's like, what are you teaching them? How does the kid hit another kid, and then you pop the kid for hitting another kid? Like, what are you teaching the kid? You are just reinforcing the behavior. Think about the psychology of that. You are reinforcing the behavior. How does a child hit another child, and then to discipline that child, you hit the child? It's counterproductive. You are reinforcing the negative behavior. And we have to understand, that this is not serving us well, and take a different approach. Einstein said to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is insanity. Providing interpersonal skills training. Many of the teachers don't even know how to relate to the children interpersonally. Teaching the children themselves how to interact appropriately. Understanding social cues. Interpersonal, understanding personal space. I'm a teacher. So sometimes the children, they'll walk right up to me. Brother Shadeed, and I'm like, first of all, respect my personal space. Back up. You are invading my space. They need to understand that. And if they will do that to you as an adult, then what do you think they're going to do with their peers? They have to understand interpersonal skills, workshops about the dangers of joining gangs and, gang behavior. Learning how to mediate conflicts. There should be staff training on learning how to mediate conflicts between children. Children need to know how to mediate their own conflicts. Everything doesn't have to resort to violence. But if that's all they know, right? The same kid who, when he hits another kid, one of his siblings, his mother, his father hits him, reinforcing the hitting behavior, that's all he knows. I solve every conflict with physical violence. The behavior is reinforced at home. We have to teach them how to mediate their conflicts, removing the concept of zero tolerance policies from our schools, from, even our masajid, even our religious institutions, that the person makes a mistake and no longer allowed to come to the masjid and worship. It's insane. Insane. As well as sanctions should be educational rather than punitive. When a child gets in trouble, the response shouldn't always be punitive, but it should be a teaching moment. It should be educational. You're going to learn from this situation rather than punishing them, because in some instances, punishing them only reinforces the behavior. Am I making sense here, or am I just kind of just talking? Okay, so what are we going to start doing now? I want to hear from you guys. What's the plan moving forward? What's the plan moving forward? Some of these delinquent youth. You guys have a youth house here, right? Youth correctional facility? All right. Is there someone going into the youth correctional facility to talk to the young men?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. Good.
Investigate is the first point tomorrow.
Okay.
Walking, I should say walking is the first point. Investigate the second, and we'll start to go outside the box, as my good friend up there says. We're going to work outside the box, and we're going to try to educate these young ones. But at the same time, we have to try to teach our parents to build relationships with their children. Some of our parents have strange relationships with their children, and they, like, I'll just put you on this week. I film my kids every 2 days to check on and see how they're doing, tell them I love them, and find out what's going on in their life. And I'm trying to build, I would say, build a good relationship so they see that I allow them and I care what they do, and I can actually guide them. You know, not tell them what people, just guide them. And they see what their father's doing, and eventually, like I may do out that, Allah makes them include some eyes.
Inshallah.
Right?
Bismillah.
But working on that now.
Okay. Anybody else? We want to be preemptive, preventative. We don't want to be reactionary. We want to start putting things in place so it does not create a problem later on.
It's going to make us aware of a problem, or it may be a problem. Maybe parents won't see it as a problem. But in a conversation with a very prominent lawyer here on the island, his name is Eugene Johnson. I don't know if you all know of him. And he mentioned that there was a point when parents, because you mentioned the schools, and we all know that your children are spending most of their time in the school system. And you mentioned the importance of the teacher's role in the school system. There was a point when parents had more say in how the school system was run through the PTA, through the Parent Teachers Association. And what he was highlighting was, the issue was that at one point, there was a matter that was taken to the court, and I remember vaguely what it was, but there was a matter that was taken to the court. And it was overturned because the argument was that the parents didn't stand for it. So the parents didn't agree with this judgment. Someone else came back and argued that actually the parents are not interested in being involved in the processes in the school system. He won that case, and they got it overturned, and so the school system was given more power to make decisions without the parents. And so you'll find that there's a more, I guess you could say, a more fundamental issue where the parents aren't really taking any initiatives when it comes to the school system. They're not involved at all. So these decisions are being made from the top down. So when you think about the amount of time that your kids are spending in the school system and the fact that the parents are not really involved, you're kind of running into a wall, because even those parents who may disagree or who may have ideas about how things should be done, they're powerless.
Yeah. You're taking your agency away from you.
Yeah, I think that the 5 descriptions you gave of the gentleman, that is a very strong sentiment or fact that's in Bermuda's life. When it comes to jobs, when it comes to food, clothing, and shelter. Here in Bermuda now, there's a lot of people sleeping in cars, people sleeping in trees. Sometimes, right now, you can go down Front Street, you look like you found a guy sleeping right in front of a shop. You see, so I went on a cruise to Jamaica, and when I went there, I got off the boat and I went into Zimbabwe, but it was selling different arts and crafts. And I went there and I didn't want anything. But I looked at it with so much poverty there and crime there, as you so well put, that I changed up $20. And one Jamaican dollar was like 160. So I changed up $20 and I walked around and gave all the vendors $2 each, American dollars, and that's like $300. You see, wow. So then I went back, and then as I went get some dinner and came back across, they all waited for me, and they said, the book was full of Jamaicans, but they just walked across them, and they asked me, am I religious? I said, yeah, I'm a little religious. Why?
Religious, right?
I said, because we're down here trying to keep out of crime, keep out of trying to steal and kill for our living, but trying to live an honest life. But you come all the way, where you from? I said, Bermuda. He said, then God must have sent you thousands of miles on a plane to come and give me $2. And all these Jamaicans living all over Miami, living all over England, all on the boat with me. And they just walk across them like they don't exist. So I would say this, that sentiment, what you just said, there's people that sell clothes, they have, what you call them, what them things called, Then when you go across the street, and you might they have ice and they put what's it called? Snowballs.
Okay.
There's a lot of people who's trying to be honest here, and we take that for granted.
Yes.
I usually sometimes even when I come to the United States, I just give out money. I just can't handle that. See, and we take for granted people who's trying to sell snowballs and things out here. We pass them every day. Don't even, and they do the you're in out. You know, sometimes you should stop and give them something, because at least they're not trying to kill and steal for a living. But
In addition to that, in America, for example, in a place like Philadelphia, you can go to any place in Philadelphia to go to a gas station. And at the gas station, you'll have 3 young guys. And they're there asking, can I pump your gas for you for a few dollars? You know? And I'm a little uncomfortable allowing another man, especially with my wife in the car, allow another man to pump my gas. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you the money anyway. I don't want you to pump the gas. I'll pump my own gas. But here's the money anyway. Just on the strength that you are honorable enough, you know, to stand here and do that. Because he could have a gun. He could have walked up to me with a gun and robbed me. You understand? That is likely. He could rob me. But rather than doing that, they want to do it in an honorable way. So, as he's saying, if you see someone trying to live an honest life, take a few moments to help them out in the system. Yeah, they could rob you. They could bust you over the head with something and take it from you. But they're trying to do it the honest way. And, you know, before, you know, the only thing that is stopping them from doing that is, of course, first and foremost, God. And then second of all, they still have some life left in them. Morality still exists within them that I'm not going to go that route, even if I have to feed my family. You know? And then there's some people who just lost all sense of morality, and they don't mind, you know, killing you for your wallet or killing you for your jacket or taking something from you physically. You know? So I'm not preaching to the choir. Like, you guys know what I'm just here to just kind of light the fire underneath you. But we have to be more proactive and not sit around waiting for things, because you can see things spiraling out of control. And it only takes, you know, especially as I heard that, you know, a lot of the young guys, they're importing this American, you know, rap culture, this stuff, this hip hop stuff. And that's exactly what hip hop was designed to do. Not from the beginning, when it was co-opted by the organizations and the companies, because hip hop used to have a powerful message behind it. It used to have a political message behind it. It used to have, you know, an upliftment message, you know, connected to it. It didn't used to be a lot of the profanity. One of my favorite rappers, Eric B. and Rakim. Rakim never cursed on any of his rhymes. Think about that. One of the pioneers of, you know, gangster rap, as they call it, never used profanity in his rhymes. And now today, you listen to some of what they're listening to today, every third word that comes out of their mouth is a curse word. It has been co-opted and now being shipped out into places as far as Nigeria. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you got this ratchet behavior as far as places like Nigeria, where young boys, I lived in Saudi Arabia, where I used to see young Saudis with red bandanas on, blue bandanas on. This is Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's a joke from where we come from, but to someone who lives in that society and who studied how this stuff spreads, it only takes a year, 2 years, that stuff moves very quickly. And of course, you got Shaitan right there in the middle of it, doing what he does best. Doing what he does best. It doesn't take long. So for those of you who are concerned, take a proactive approach and begin putting these things in place so that you can stop, or at least reduce, you know, the intensity of what has the potential to become very, you know, very dangerous for our young people. These are our youth. These are our children. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Thank you for having me. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to protect you, protect your families, protect your environment, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless us with the resources to make changes in the environment for the better. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.